going to talk today about my strategies that I've been using in my writing class and my reading class that have helped improve my vocabulary scores. So as you can see, I'm going to talk about my personal vision statement, and then we're going to talk about the problems that I've had and kind of the things that I've done to fix it. So I'm going to go ahead and read this one word for word. My vision statement is that my vision for my students is to set high expectations. I want to accomplish this by setting goals that scaffold them into exceeding my expectations. The overall vision is for every student to meet the expectations I set for them by reaching each goal they set for themselves as the year progresses. I expect my students to aim high, and I do that by setting high expectations for myself and being open about my personal goals and the goals I set for myself as their teacher. I challenge each student to meet their goal and extension mine as well. So one of my major goals this year was to have 10 students score distinguished on on-demand writing, and I've told them that since the first day of school. Last year my goal was 5, and I ended up with 6 students. So I've been very open with them about my goals for them. I've given them goals about my personal life, about my daughter, and potty training, and things like that too. Okay, so the problem I have noticed is that we are working every week. We use our vocabulary as our bill work. But what I'm really noticing is that my students, their grades are not improving on their summative assessment at the end of the week. Their vocabulary scores are just not going up like I want them to. So I thought I'd try something a little different. My students scored well on the first 3 questions, but then only 2/3 of my students answered the rest of them correctly. So you can see, like, they're doing well with some of it, but then the rest of it they're not doing very well at all. So I found out at a seminar I went to about the Kagan strategies, which at first I was like, you're absolutely crazy and there's no way I could ever use that in my classroom. My kids will go bananas. But I started using a few things at a time. We did the turn and talk, we did round robin, we did the coach one, I forget the name of it. But they're different grouping strategies and that have students interacting, but they use the way that students, some work slower, some work faster, some are done in 5 seconds, some will take an hour and still won't be done, and it takes that into consideration. So for this particular bell work, I'm going to use the stand-up, hand-up, pair-up strategy, and that students are on the floor moving around your classroom, and they will stand up when they're finished and ready. They'll put their hand up, and when they get to another student with their hand up, they'll give them a high five, and then they'll share whatever I have asked them to share, or they'll discuss whatever I have asked them to discuss. So in this instance, my students were using their vocabulary words and sentences of their own creation, and they were asked to share a specific number of sentences. I did 3 each day. So as you can see, they would share with multiple partners. And my students that wanted to talk about it a little bit more, they had that chance. And my students that wanted to share, they finished and they moved on to somebody else. And then when I called time's up, everybody had shared with at least one person. Some of them had shared with 10, and then we were able to sit down. So these are some of the samples I received from my students. You can see they've underlined their vocabulary words in the sentences, and they did pretty good. I heard a student specifically say, oh, I have to do a really good job on these sentences. I'm going to have to share them with people. So it seemed like holding them accountable to their peers was way more effective than them just me holding them accountable. They didn't want to be judged harshly by their peers, which I think is something I make use in the future. After I did this, you can see that my student scores went up. Out of the 5 vocabulary questions that they had on their summative assessment that week, the students did pretty well, but they had a couple questions, number 1 and number 5 here, only 47 and 44 students got correct. So I was still I was really excited and happy to see the results, because almost every student, all but like 6, got them correct for 2, 3, and 4. But I thought maybe we could do it better. So instead of just using them in sentences, I thought, well, maybe we need to practice what the word actually means before we use it in a sentence. So we started the week with definitions. So on Monday, the students, their bell work was to come up with 5 definitions, and they could use the glossary or a dictionary and come up with definitions for their book, for their words. And then on Wednesday and Thursday, we came up with sentences to use those words. So they had their definitions that they had created on one side of their paper and their sentences on the other. And so they could kind of help each other that way. So then I noticed when we did the definitions first, I got these really great, much more complex sentences that involved the words, and they were actually more often used correctly in their sentences after we'd done the definitions. So as you can see from the scores, like, they were so much better. Like, number 1, every single student got correct. Same thing with 7, 8, 9, 10, and I think these only like 3 or 4 kids missed. So most of my students' test scores went up by 15 or 20%, which was amazing. I've had parents actually excited about it. So if you look at my data, you can see that, originally we did the sentences and that helped. But then when we put the definitions and the sentences and we used the Kagan strategies, the kids were holding each other accountable. And that was something that was really exciting for me because the students, they kept asking, can I have more time? I think I can make these better. So I really want to take a better look at the other Kagan strategies and see if there's more that I can use. Because if they're going to do better for their peers, I'm all for it. If that's what it takes to make you motivated, I'm all about it. I did think, though, that the stand-up, hand-up, it would be great for story starters with my writing. They could discuss their ideas with each other and then help them to develop it so that when we get to the next step of actually writing it, they have a well-thought-out story and they've really had some time to think and they can do a better job, have more details, make it great. My other thought, Mr. Simon, is that we could go to math. Maybe with problem solving, they could discuss, well, this is how I got this answer. How did you get your answer? So it kind of gives them the chance to bounce ideas off of each other. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, there will be a Kagan strategy training. I think it's at Greg, but it's really expensive. I'm going to talk to our principal about it. I think that's all I've got. Thank you.